All right, Habari Gani, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to another one of our anniversary events called Black Student Matters. All of our programs this year acknowledge 30 wonderful years of the AACRC's existence on UC's campus. And tonight's Black Activism Forum continues our celebration of applauding some of the most impactful events, intriguing information, and more importantly, some key people associated with Black UC excellence. Tonight, we will highlight experiences from our guests who are among several Black student leaders and activists from their respective eras. We hope the audience will learn about the various measures these students took to hold the University of Cincinnati answerable to the commitment to Black student lives. As well, current student leaders can use this conversation to mirror and compare their strategies with the ultimate goal of preparing themselves for the work towards expanding their social action as they navigate through a predominantly white campus. And one final note is that we realize that many of you may appropriately qualify to be on this panel, but we can only feature a few. However, I look forward to hearing your stories as well when we go to the question and answer segment. So let's get started. Our panelists will now introduce themselves and briefly talk about the Black student activism they encountered while at UC. First up is Ms. Laurie Davis.
Good evening. Again, I'm Laurie Davis, very happy to have the opportunity to be here to share with you about some of my time at UC during 1986 through 1991. I was involved with the United Black Association, as well as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Residence Hall Judicial Commission. I was in Sawyer Hall at that time. I was also involved in, the Association of Black Business Students and the Undergraduate Budget Board. And I'm, again, very happy to be here to share some of my experiences. The two activist opportunities that I had that were major were when, number one, we were hoping to get the University of Cincinnati to divest its holdings into any entity such as Coca-Cola at that time that had any of its operations in South Africa. At that time, apartheid was still involved and engaged, and that was the first one. And the second one was to be able to see tonight happen as a result of a cultural center being established on campus. At that time, it was 1989, 1990. And as most know, it was originally conceived in 1968. And being a part of that was wonderful. I lived on campus for most of my time at the University of Cincinnati, so I was engaged with a lot of opportunities to demonstrate student leadership and development. I'm currently a lawyer, professor, entrepreneur, and I've had a little time to do a little of everything. And I am enjoying that. I have an adult daughter. I'm really excited about her matriculation into college. It doesn't seem possible, but I do. I have a daughter at that age who is in college. Additionally, I think that my most memorable moments at the University of Cincinnati were being named a student to Who's Who among American college students, and also becoming a member of the first class to participate in Tahimba, which was and still is, a graduation ceremony for not just the students, but also for our larger community of those who helped and supported us then. Quick fun fact is that I'm so old, no, really, that when I lived in Sadal Hall, we had telephones, and our telephones were Black and attached to the wall, and we could only make local outgoing calls. And so I very understand that Sadal Hall no longer has those phones, And you all should be glad about that. In addition, Siddall Hall didn't have any air conditioning at that time. So we had a lot of fans going on. It was a wonderful experience and opportunity to be at UC. And I thank you for giving me just a few minutes this evening to share my perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Samuel Burbanks.
Greetings, everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Samuel Burbanks, and I'm extremely happy to be here. I started UC in 1990 in University College, which was considered like a junior college right on the main campus of the university. A lot of Black students came to University College. I was one of those students. I wasn't active on campus until I would say around 1993, 94. And that was after I didn't really leave school, but I was only taking 1 or 2 classes at a time because of financial reasons, which extended my stay at UC. And again, sometimes that happened to folks who came through U College. But I didn't get active until about maybe 94, 95. I was a part of the United African Organization, which was a name change from the previous organization, which was UBA, United Black Association. We decided to change the name to United African Organization as a way to show our connection, our strong connection with Africa, and as a sort of a conscious movement in a progressive direction. At least that was our thinking then. I was also a part of a group called the African Men of Impact. It was a short-lived but quite popular organization of Black men. It was started by a group of brothers on campus, one, Ron Jackson, Bakari Booker, Reginald Brazel, and a few other folks. I can't name all of them, but they started this group as a way to show Black pride or Black male pride, as also a way of, we consider ourselves the protectors of Black folks on campus. So that was another organization I was a part of. And it was a strong organization. As I said, it didn't last long, but a lot of people remember the African Men of Impact. UAO was where I spent most of my time as a student activist, and we took on a lot of issues on campus. We did a lot of things on campus. Talked about police brutality, which was, of course, still going on then without the video cameras, without all the evidence. We dealt with police brutality. We dealt with issues on campus concerning Black students, a few issues. One, and I forget what year, but 2 sisters had run for student body president, and they were robbed of their victory and forced to have a new election. And we fought hard to try to get those sisters in the seats that they won. We did not prevail in that instance, but we still had to fight. Another instance, similar issue with different folks, James Upshaw and Narula, I forget his last name. Those 2 brothers had the same issue, ran for president. They took the presidency from them. We fought hard for it, and this time we won, and they installed them as president and vice president of the university. So those were some of the things that we dealt with on campus. We had protests. We took over the student government office one year and kicked all the white folks out. And we declared that office ours for the time we were there. Police came, campus police. They sent out the vice president, Mitch Livingston, to come calm us down. So we cause a few ruckuses on campus as well. And I'll say, give a fun fact. The fun fact that was fun for us. A few members of UAO would always attend the men's basketball games, and we would sit in the front row of the student section, and we would root against the Bearcats just because it was a way of relieving stress, and the white folks hated it. The student section, they hated us doing that, and we were loud, and it was sort of our way of getting back at the university, because we felt a lot of pressure in the 90s, and a lot of things were going on in the 90s, especially in terms of racism. And like I said, there was not video to capture these things and these instances in most cases. So a lot of the things that we had to deal with, or that we were fighting for, people just didn't believe was existing, because there wasn't the proof that we see now, where everybody has a video camera in their hand. But though that is where I began, is at United African Organization, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as we proceed in the program.
Okay, I think you faded out the end, but I'm sure you said you'll talk about some more of your activity later. And I was here for a lot of them. I can't wait to hear. Okay, so now I'm going to go to who I call a dynamic duo. I seem to have done everything on campus together. I'm going to feature them together. They were Mr. and Miss Kawamka, the first Mr. and Miss Kawamka couple, Torian being the first Mr. Dr. Osmer being the first Miss Kawamka to have a Mr. Kawamka. So it's that history. We talked about that in the previous program. And now we're going to transition to Dr. Nicole Osmer and Mr. Torian Johnson.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Torian Johnson. I'm attended UC from 2000 to 2004 with double major, and at the time it was called African American Studies and Political Science. I was a part of when we got there was a void on campus. Some of the organizations, for whatever reasons, I don't know why they weren't there. So that's when the United Black Student Association came about, and as time went on, it's become aligned with the other organization, which was UBA, UAO, and now UBSA. But there was a small gap there, which we found a lot of space and used that opportunity to really engage with a lot of students. I purposely have a picture behind me because I want to use this opportunity to do something that no one's really expecting, especially not Nicole. Nakia Valentine is behind me, and that she was she's since passed, but she was a key member to making sure that UBSA was extremely successful by planning 2 weeks of programming called the UGMA. And also one of our major programs was Harlem Nights. And I say that because when I was an undergrad, I attributed a lot to myself. There was a lot of ego, and I didn't realize that I kind of was just up front of the person. And there were a lot of people behind the scenes doing the work, mainly Black women, which I think were undermined at that time. So I actually wanted to use this time to realize that when we look back at ourselves, we always have to analyze how we were then. And I wasn't the best person, especially not to my Ms. Kawamka, my vice president of UBSA, and that was to Nicole. So publicly, because we had a complicated history at that time, and I never took ownership for the problems that I caused within our organization because it was me. So I wanted to take this time to apologize to Nicole and thank her for everything she did for UBSA. Because when we were getting started, we had a lot of opposition from our own community. She's the one who stood up for the organization, fought for it, made sure we had the existence. So I just want to acknowledge her and acknowledge all the Black women that really made sure that organization got to where it was, including people like Marla Winston and Leticia Jones and Alicia Brown, who attended every meeting. So many Black women were involved in making sure, but it seemed that the men stood up front and got the notoriety, and they played the background role. But I want to make sure that they are given their spotlight, even if it is 16, 17 years later, it needs to be addressed. So I want to take this time to do that. So I was a part of United Black Student Association, BASE, AACRC choir, transitions, pretty much anything on campus that, that Black people were attending, I was part of it or not too far away from it. Part of our movement was we did the fight. There was a potential of tuition increases that would also that would cause a cut to a lot of the programs on campus. And also at the time, they were impeachment proceedings for the current sitting African-American student body president and vice president. So we did a huge protest, which resulted in UBSA in our first year getting a quarterly meeting with the president. It was Dr. Nancy Zinfer at the time, but we were on the agenda once a quarter to make sure that the Black student needs were at the forefront for the university. As of now, I am a federal mediator with the federal government. So I work with labor unions and management to make sure there's peace and harmony across the United States and that the commerce continues within America. And also, most memorable moment at UC, I think Eric kind of already gave it away, was winning Mr. Kawamka with my counterpart, my Miss Nicole. And that also where, when we toured around on spring break tour, which was a prize for Kawamka, is where we literally sat on a tour bus and mapped out what our plans would be when we got back to campus and how we would present it and really how we would bring the student organization there, because there was a huge void on campus and we wanted to fill it with that. And a fun fact about me is that I actually had pictures when I was like 4 or 5 years old at UC, because my sister, Wanda Johnson, well, they call her, her nickname back then was Whack. Her name is Wanda Goggins now, was a student there. She used to bring us down for Little Civs weekend. So my connection with UC goes really, really far. I know a lot of people back from the late 80s, early 90s, all the way up into my era. And I also stayed really involved afterwards with the Kawamka. So I know it's probably like a good 20-year span of UC people that I know, and it's a great network, a great community, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And I'm happy to discuss some of that activism and things we did on campus when we were there. So give it to my counterpart, Dr. Nicole Osmer.
Hey, everyone. Wow, Torian, I was not.
You're muted, Dr.
Turn yourself off, Nicole.
Okay, sorry, I'm in the car, so I'm struggling. But that was beautiful. And I don't think, well, one, I was not expecting that, but I'm so glad you addressed it, because it's a problem that we have historically seen in our organizations, that we allow men to take the front runner position and women will do a lot of the work. So I'm so glad you called the names. But so excited to be here today with you all. I'm going to answer the questions before I have to hop off. But when I was an undergrad, my name was Nicole Smith back then. So I always like to joke and say like, oh, Nicole Smith is going to show up today. But the work that Torian and I got to do for UBSA, I remember coming to UC and all of my friends that went to other schools had Black student unions or Black student associations, and we didn't have anything. So I remember my freshman year trying to find that. And so we were able to, on this spring break tour, figure out what that meant for us. And we were it was very important to us to put the word student in the program, in the name of UBSA. We knew about UBA, we knew about UAO, but we said this is the only time in your life that you would get that student component, because you could join a Black student organization after. So we're excited that that's still a part of the thread of the organization, because we really wanted to empower students at that time. Hold on. I keep muting myself. Sorry, Eric, I'm here. So the years that I attended UC is 2001 through 2009, but very similarly to Torian, I feel like I've been here forever. I did all of my degrees here, and then I got a job and I'm still here. So I currently serve as the Director of Student Activities and Leadership Development, which is the office that really helped us get UBSA off the ground. They had some great leadership there at the time, and gave us a lot of the old papers and documents to help us move forward. So really proud of the office that I work for and what we were able to accomplish, and thank them in the AACRC. when I think about some of the movements that we did, one thing Torian left out when we talked about doing that protest. So we actually were protesting at an admissions fair. So there was an admissions fair on campus, and we went to the admissions fair and we had a chant that said, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, 9.5 has got to go." And that was the number of students that they were admitting into the institution, when at the time we had 13%. So we're walking around with drums and African flags talking about, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, 9.5 has got to go." And from this admissions fair, we traveled to the impeachment proceedings of all of the Black senators and Black president and vice president at the time. And then from there, we stormed the president's office. So we took, it was a protest, but we took the elevator to the 6th floor, a few elevator rides at a time, to tell the president like what we wanted and what we needed as students. And it was such a powerful moment, being there until the last student left. And like Torian said, being able to create space for Black students on the calendar with the president at the time, and then with Dr. Livingston after. So very proud of what we were able to accomplish, and excited that they still gave me a job after that. There's a point on here about student organizations that you created. So UBSA, I like to say, instead of creating, like, we refreshed it, we brought it back, we revived it. But also I'm responsible for the Lambda Society, which is another organization that celebrates Black women. We realized that there were honoraries on campus, that it would take Black women 4 years to get into, where we saw their white counterparts with equal or less than experience being recognized. And it was because people weren't able to see the work that our Black women were doing in the AACRC. So they didn't count it the same way that they looked at others. So that was a great experience doing that. A fun fact with Lambda, I technically was never a member of Lambda because I had already graduated, but it is an organization that I started. And then my most memorable UC moment, I have so many, and I don't even know if I could get to one, but UC was just memorable in general. We used to have something, homecoming was not what it was now back then. So we used to have a homecoming week, and the UBSA did, and you could get a seat anywhere in Nifford at that time. And so we would do blackouts. We would go sit, not like Sam, like we didn't root against UC, but we would go sit and make this huge presence of Black people in the stands. So that was really cool. And we would say, "Where you're Black," and we would black out this small section of the stadium. And then a fun fact is I am the director of SALD, and I was a student worker in there when I was an undergraduate, and knew that that was the job that I wanted. So it's a manifestation that I was able to do 20 years ago. I think that's it, Eric. And yeah, Torian, shout out to you.
And neither of them mentioned that Torian and Nicole were in the AACRC choir together, but that's a whole nother conversation. We have little technical difficulties. Mario Shaw, who was noted to have been instrumental in one of the construction phases of the Cultural Center, and I'll get to his video once we can get it queued up. But then there's still a great transition, because Torian definitely alluded to the fact that, women, in terms of their presence in Black student activism. And so it's kind of a great transition to now introduce Brittany Bibb, who, well, I won't give it away. So she can talk to you about her experiences and what she's done for Black student activism.
Hey everybody, I'm Brittany Bibb. You can call me Bibb, and my pronouns are she and her. I went to UC from 2011 through 2015. And then when I was a student there, I was in transitions. I was also a base mentor for the transition students. I was in the United Black Student Association. So shout out to all of y'all. I was a member of, or am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a part of the Lambda Society. I also did SACUB, which was interesting and similar to the board that Laurie Davis was talking about. And probably a host of other things. The other favorite thing I'll shout out is emerging ethnic leaders, because shout out to Dr. Oz. Let's see, the student movements that I was a part of, I think there were a lot of different moments where I was like learning about activism and things like that. One of the most notable was when there was a racist cartoon drawn about Brian Jackson and Carol Tong Mack. And so students like came together to protest about that and take a stand. But then I would say like the most notable thing that I was a part of is called the Irate 8. And so that was a student movement that was started in response to the murder of Sam DuBose. And really the credit goes to the alumni members of the Lambda Society, because those are the people that were, you know, saying, hey, you all are the leaders on campus. You're in a whole honorary and you're Black women. What are you going to do about this? And so they really pushed us to start that. At the time, we didn't know that we would be putting out demands or anything like that. But it started at Ashley Nakati's house, who is the co-founder along with myself. I did not start any organizations while I was at UC that I remember, at least. And then what I'm doing professionally now is I work for the Movement for Black Lives, and I'm a digital organizer there. And so that's an ecosystem of 150 organizations who are a broad political home for Black people and are always fighting for racial equity in this country and with our international partners. My most memorable moment at UC, I thought about this long and hard, but I'll just give some themes. I would say spring break tour, when we stopped on Bourbon Street in the middle of nowhere. It was not on our route. They just surprised us and told us to get out. That was really fun. Also CAB, can never leave that out because that was just the most epic story. And then a fun fact about me, I would say, is that I worked at UC. So I worked there as an academic advisor for a couple of years, and then I worked at the AACRC over the transitions program. And I feel like that's kind of similar to Dr. Oz, because I feel like the only reason I even made it through UC was because of like transitions and all of the different supports that the AACRC gave me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. And as Dr. Abercrombie was saying, now is the Young Turks. So the youngest member of our panel is Mr. Gerald Crosby.
Hope Oregani, everybody. My name is Gerald Crosby. I am a current student at UC. I'm a fourth year here. I have been a part of a few organizations on campus. So undergraduate student government, UBSA, founded a mentoring organization called UC Starfish, which focuses on getting more Black representation into the elementary schools here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Also partnered to found another organization called the Black Roundtable. Essentially, the purpose is to create more community amongst the Black leaders so that we can come to one common goal. I've been a part of Transitions and a few other organizations as well. The movements that I've been a part of since I've been here, when I first got on campus, it was right after like the Sam DuBose trial and everything, and it was the rate tenancy payout, and there was a lot of protesting, a lot of initiatives focusing on getting or holding UCPD accountable for that payout. Another thing that was big was divesting from Earmark. And then just honestly, now we're opening more conversations about like radical police reform. That's been another big thing that's been happening at UC that I have had the pleasure or the opportunity to kind of speak to and be a part of. Other organizations I've been a part of is Collegiate 100, and just kind of focusing on, you know, bettering the Black community and trying to find more intricate ways and different ways to create change on campus. For me, by me being a fourth year, a lot of my experience have come from the elders. And one of my main goals have been trying to figure out what can I do that hasn't been done, but also using that knowledge and that wisdom to create a change that like we're trying to see, or furthering that needle of change. It's what I'm doing professionally. I'm still in school, so I graduate next year. And then my most memorable moment at UC has been speaking at Convocation. And the fun fact that I have is I'm still a student, but I'm looking forward to tonight's discussions and hoping to learn new things and kind of share my wisdom and my experiences. And yeah.
Okay, thanks, Gerald. All right, so this segment, I'm going to ask a few questions, and if all of the panelists would at least turn your cameras on, and whoever would like to chime in and answer these next set of questions, then actually feel free to do so. And after I ask a few questions, then we will move to the audience if you have questions that you'd like to ask other panelists. As well, if we have some other activists, we realize that everybody on the panel, as I said earlier, there's more people that were in the fight who actually advocated for Black students, and we definitely value your stories as well. So you're very welcome to share your stories. So the first question I have is, how would you describe, this is for anyone, how would you describe, and more importantly, how would you mirror the social climate how would you compare it to now versus how it was when you were a student? So the social climates, how is the culture now versus how it was when you were a student?
And if you don't mind, I'll go because I was there in 2000, 2001, and that was the year the unrest happened in Cincinnati over the death of Timothy Thomas. So it's really mind blowing that we're kind of still here as a culture and still, fighting police brutality and some of those same things. So while we have made some progress, there's still so much work to do. So it's disappointing that it mirrors it so much still, but that's what happened when my freshman year. So, and that was one of the reasons that I really got involved in campus and became an activist because of the Timothy Thomas event. Because at that time I kind of was just doing all the fun stuff on campus, and I realized that there was more work to do and there was more important things to really engage in.
Yeah, I will definitely echo a lot of that. But another thing that I kind of want to point out is like, it's not even just from 2015 to 2021. I feel like we're still going through some of the same things from the 80s and the 60s. Because when I was talking to Sawyer Laurie before this panel, like she was expressing and I was telling her how we found like some of the same type of artifacts from what was happening in real life. So like, for example, they were making white student union Facebook pages in response to the IRA 8, whereas they had those, it was like NSBE, but it had white in it. So the National Society of White Engineers, and they was hanging those types of posters up and things like that. So I think that's another way that things are still the same, like the retaliation to Black student activism is still there.
Dr. Burbanks now chime in. It's similar. I would say it's a similar environment. When I was there in the 90s, you had in Cincinnati a rash of Black men being killed by police. I think it was like 15 or 16 brothers that were shot and killed by police. You saw the brutal arrest of Farron Crosby downtown, who was a high school student on his way home from school, who was arrested and maced in his mouth and his eyes and slammed on the ground and arrested. You had, of course, Rodney King happen in the 90s, and that was videoed, of course, and that was the only way we knew about that. It's because someone had a video camera, not a cell phone, a video camera, and had the wherewithal to begin filming when they saw that. And there's just a lot of issues that are still current today that were going on in the 90s. I would say this, and it's only because University College, I think is one of the reasons the University College is no longer at UC. We did have a bigger Black student population on the main campus because of that, because of U College, but we still were pushing the issue of more bringing more Black students on campus at that time, as we still are today at UC. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. But one of the things that I do think has changed for the better is technology. We have internet. There was no internet when I started at UC. You have the internet now. You have social media. You have cell phones that can video and record things, push out information much more faster than we could ever do when we were active on campus. You know, we had to take flyers and post them places. We had to visit neighborhoods and hand flyers out and literature out to get people involved. So that's one of the major differences that I do think exists, is that the technology allows for faster, I don't know, I won't say better, but at least faster communication, and for Black students who want to be active on campus.
Yeah, I think Sam hit the nail on the head. Is, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So during my tenure at UC, George Bush was president, as second Bush was president. So we had this president in the White House that we also believe did not care about Black people. And so as students, we were battling that and what that looks like. And one thing that hasn't been brought up yet as well is just this division amongst the Black community on what activism should look like or what it should feel like. And a part of me is like, great, because we're not a monolith. Like, so those things can exist, but we still, as someone who works on campus and has seen it, so in 20 years, we still have not figured out how to support each other through these things, even if it's not the way that we think the protest should happen or the way to ask for something should happen. So I don't think our students are there yet. We weren't there. For the same reason that Martin and Malcolm didn't agree on ways to protest things. But I think if we ever really want to help students move forward or help our own movements move forward, we have to figure that part out and realize that everybody has to play a role in this. So it's not about critiquing how one side is asking for change, but it's about understanding how you can commit to helping with change. And so I think that was the climate, Eric. And I think that's still, I've seen that be the climate on campus for a very long time. And I know we have some current students on here, so I don't know if I don't want to like misread the situation for them, but I do think that that's a part of it. So you have all these things happening in the world, but we also still have this situation within ourselves that we need to close the door on and work through how we can help move our movements forward.
I would have to like 100% agree with that. I would say that like our institution and university has a lot of parallel to us as a country, right? With us only being 8% of at UC and being at a PWI, as Black students trying to create the change that we're trying to create, is so important that we have that community and that strength in numbers. And a lot of times our initiatives or our programming or our ideas fall short because we don't work as a collective for a multitude of reasons, right? Maybe we don't understand the movement. Maybe we're not excited about the movement. Maybe we have friends that are in different positions. There's so many things that play a role, into why students do things and why we don't do things. But I don't just think that's like a UC thing. Like, as I study the systems of America, I learned that this has been a fight that Dr. Oss was saying, that Malcolm and Martin has had, and before them, that we as a community we have to come more together and be collective. And I don't know if that's a solution ever going to find in the next couple of years or not, but I do think that is step one, trying to find some type of common ground so that we can execute the plans that we're having.
You're
Eric, you're muted. I know you're telling us something.
Thank you. Thanks, Tori. I wanted to transition just kind of not away from it, but I wanted to, he'll be introduced later, but Brother Abdi Lewis, he's going to be at the end of the program, but I wanted him because he was very, very active. He was president of the UBSA, and he was very active in student activism, and it would be disrespectful to not allow him to have something to say in this segment as well, because I worked with him as a student. I saw your excellence, and I think it would be great that you can kind of interject. So feel free, Abdi.
I'm sorry, you kind of faded out there at the end. I didn't hear the ask. Did you just wanted me to introduce myself?
I'm sorry. I was just basically asking you to add anything you want to say to the conversation because of your activist roles that you had on campus.
Absolutely. You know, and I think this is what has been instilled in me just in being involved with the likes of Torian and Dr. Osmer and Mario Javon Shaw and the likes. What they've instilled in me is that you have to be involved and you have to pay attention, because there's something worth standing up for, there's something worth fighting for, but not if you're not involved, not if you're not paying attention. And so I think that the issues that have been brought to the forefront are as a result of those who decided to be involved, decided that there is something that they've noticed that's not right. And then they took the stance on that issue and they saw it through to its resolution. You know, they sought a end to whatever the injustice was. And so we all carry the torch. And this is not, I'm not trying to get too involved in this, you know, and ruin my ending part. But nevertheless, what I've seen in terms of student activism is that there are students who are saying, you know what, this isn't right. The fact that we have a cartoon caricature of our Black dean and assistant dean, that's not right. The fact that we have a student center that's for Black people, and yet we have debris falling from the ceiling and rats inside of our food when we open it up, that's not right. The fact that when we go into our classrooms and we're the only Black or African-American person, that's not right. And so when you realize that something's not right, it's incumbent upon you to create change. And so I think that's what these students that I've seen over the years or heard stories about, is this willingness to say it's not right, but yet we can change it. And so there needs to be more of that, I think.
Thank you for that, Abdi. So I think this will be my last question. So who were your non-student allies, professors, community members who helped you accomplish student activism on UC campus?
Ask that one more time. I want to make sure I answer correctly.
Who were your non-student allies who assisted you in your Black student activism, like professors, community members, churches? Who are those persons who, you know, we hear about? Of course, we hear about Doc and myself, but who are those persons who also helped you attain excellence as a student on the PT?
Eric, do you mind if I take that? Do you mind if I respond?
Oh, please.
Oh, okay. Well, during the time for the university, UBA, United Black Association, seeking to establish a cultural center at the university, I think I can think of many people. Dr. Odell Owens, #1, who provided the seed money. He was a member of the Board of Trustees, long-term physician who has recently retired in Cincinnati. He was very instrumental in really listening to why we felt a cultural center design for African Americans should be on campus. We talked with Marjorie Parham. She was at that time and she probably still is, the emeritus editor at the Cincinnati Herald. They were very instrumental in supporting us on campus. Dr. Anthony Prozigian, who ultimately became the chair of the feasibility study that I served on, along with Latasha Brown Reedus at that time. Byron Stallworth was there. We had many allies who supported the work that we were doing, and also people we could turn to ask questions. We were young adults trying to make a reality happen that was something that was 20 years in the making. And we wanted to be able to be here to have the conversation that we're having now. We had lots of grand ideas, and it's just so fulfilling to see all of you who have been able to benefit from the center and its programming and pushing that further. We had allies who were non-white, and that was refreshing. We also had many naysayers, but we're not going to talk about the naysayers at this moment. But yes, we had lots of allies. Ken Simonson was with the university at that time. Not sure if he's still there. He was a wonderful supporter. I think he was on staff at the College of Engineering at that time. I found him to be a great resource. And I think we can just go on and on and on in terms of those who were there to support what we were doing. Many of us were a year or two away from graduation, so we knew that the Cultural Center would become a reality for you all and not benefit us, but we worked hard because we wanted to see it come to fruition to benefit you all and the university.
Hey, Laurie.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. You all will go back and look.
Hey there.
We did a
hey, Eric.
real quick. Yes, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. Let me say one thing real quick. If y'all want to go back and look at one of our previous programs, Young Gifted in Black, a lot of names that Laurie had mentioned, Brian Starr, Reggie Brazel, Harlan Jackson, in terms of having that conversation, those actions of Black student activism to start the Culture Center. Dr. Odell OMG actually mentioned that issue where at first he said no, as I understand the history, and Doc sent Reggie Brazel back to talk with him, say, humble yourself, talk with him, change his mind. And as I understand, that was the deciding vote for the Culture Center to become a reality. So those are great points. Thank you, Laurie. Brother Booker, go ahead.
You know, we also utilize the, what was that called? African Studies Department.
Sure did.
We utilized them, and believe it or not, we also had a strong support and backing from the Nation of Islam.
We certainly did. We absolutely did.
And the other Muslim group, Nafisa, what group is that? Because I know you're still on here. I just saw you.
Brad was one of those awesome student activists there in the trenches with us.
So, I mean, we used a lot of people from the community. And one of the things that we, you know, I don't really hear people talk about, but it was a vehicle for us, was the reality show that we would look at it and say, back then, that was our reality TV, was a different world. A different world, really, because we used them as a common vehicle and the things that they went through, and we applied it to us. And I don't know if you remember, Laurie, we were going to lock ourselves up in the administration building. We had bought the chains and everything.
I do recall.
Yeah, we were going to lock ourselves up because they hadn't divested in
Shell, Coca-Cola,
South Africa. So we took upon that and said, okay, you know what? Because Howard at the time was, they had just finished a boycott because they were speaking out against apartheid and their ties with apartheid, as well as, remember, they had fired Dr. Frances Cress Welsing from their school because they said that she was too Black. So we was like, nah, if they doing it there, we can do it here. So that was our point of coming together. I can say this also, when we were in school, it really wasn't that much of a difference. However, we made the people come together. We made our student body come together because it was separate. You had your non-Greek versus your Greek. You had your commuters versus your campus people. But, you know, because I was a transfer student. I don't know if I was here when they had the watermelon and chicken party, but I do remember Reggie bringing everybody together in Great Hall. And he was telling people to position yourselves and go meet up with people in your college. And they had all the different divisions of the college up there. And that's how we found out who was Black in College of Education, who was Black in design, architect, art, and planning, who was Black in evening college, who was Black in university college, who was Black in the business college, you know, who was Black in A&S, because I know for me being a DAP student, we only had classes once a week. So if I had a class on Monday at 8 o'clock and my class was over at 10:50, then Dawn, who was over there, she had a class at 11:15. Then her class was over maybe about 2:30. So we didn't really see each other until that big rally that came up. It was some type of racial rally that came on campus. And I just think we need to continue that momentum. I know, you know, there's a difference between this era and that era, but collectively, we're all still going through the same struggle. We're all still, you know, fighting for the common justice, not just for ourselves, but for the students that are coming behind us. And we just need to continue it.
And I want to pick up something that Bakari said also, as terms of the community. When I was there, we had a strong community presence on campus, and we had a strong community presence from the campus. And people like Kurt Standifer, Mother Habiba, Kim Yamoyo, organizations like you said, the Nation of Islam, the All African People's Revolutionary Party. There were just a number of community people who were supporting us, the things that we did, and we in turn supported them. We would have space for them to come do programs like the AAPRP every year had African Liberation Day, and they would have forums on Fridays, and we would rent out one of the halls so they could come and do the forums on that Friday. So we had a lot of support from the community, and we tried to give them support. At the same time, we also, at least me, I used to do radio at WAIF. So anytime we needed to be on the radio on my show every Friday, we would have students come down and talk about what's going on at UC, or to talk about programs that were going on at UC. So that was another area in terms of the community support we had. We just had a tremendous amount of support from the community. And that's one of the things I hope is still going on, but I don't particularly think I see, even though I'm not tied to the campus as I used to be, but I hope that's still going on with the student leadership today.
And I just wanted to just call the names of a few of the people that had influence when I was there. And surprisingly, I when you said it, I laughed at you, Eric, but I'm gonna give you your flowers. You know, Eric, you really were an influence on me as far as the opportunities you presented as just through music. Coming from Akron, Ohio, only time I went on vacation is somebody died or I was visiting my grandparents in the South in Tennessee. Those were my vacations back then. So you being in the choir and going and singing at all these places all over the nation provided me with a perspective of the world that I didn't get. And it is because of your contributions to the choir and because of you. So on behalf of that, thank you. I know you don't see that. And Eric, me and Eric knows I didn't talk about Eric like a dog to his face all the time. So this is pretty much a big, this is very different coming from me, but I do appreciate that because you have to recognize that you did open up you gave a lot of opportunities for students who hadn't been to a lot of these places to go there and display their talent for the world. Also, I have to shout out Dr. Terry Hurdle, Courtney Kerrigan, Mr. Bowen, Frank Bowen, and also in his passing, Mr. Reggie in that office. And the other one was Miss LaShanta Jones. She gave me a scholarship to go to, let's shout her out. And Stacey Downing and anybody who worked at the Carter Center. Also Gila Johnson was the first person I went and met because she knew my sister Wanda, and she's the one, that was the first reason I walked into the Carter Center was because of her. And also I want to speak to, one of the things that because I may have to get off here a little early, but I also wanted to speak to, that the importance of alumni coming back and assisting students and not coming back to, because I always hated this as an undergrad and I always want to talk about it, not to come back to preach to them, but to ask them, how can I help you? What's going on right now? And how can I be of assistance and how can I be of service? I hope that's what I didn't always come back like that. I did come back preaching at people at times, but I did transition to that. So that's the ask that I want to ask the students, anybody that I have contact with, like, how can I help you? What role can I play? And also I want to shout out this, I think this is the first time me and Karan Knight have been in a room together. He was Mr. Kawamka. I'm the original one, so we really haven't met. So I want to acknowledge that. Nice to meet you, brother. And when we see each other in person, we'll live it up. We won't talk about what we're doing here, but I'm glad we're in the same space so I can at least formally meet you virtually. So those were my experiences and those are my charges to us as alum, is to really help the students to figure out what they need and how we can be an assistance to them and not be, more preacher-like towards them, but be more assistance.
Yeah, so I want to talk about some of the allies that we had during the Irate 8. First and foremost, I would say the Lambda Society, like I said earlier, those alumni really held our hand through. We were very nice, and they were the ones that were actually irate. And so they always helped us craft the perfect things to do. And they just taught us so many things. Sometimes we listened, sometimes we didn't. But them, along with the alumni from Collegiate 100, which is the Black men's honorary on campus as well. And then as far as students go, we did have a very close working relationship with student government. I remember meeting with them every Thursday. It was Andrew Knabb and Andrew Griggs, and we met in the conference room of the center to talk about various things related to what we were trying to achieve with the Irate 8. And so for example, when we came out with our demands to the university, one of those demands did pertain to student government having to I think do an assessment of their makeup, because student government was very white at the time. And they agreed with that. They did it, but it was not a surprise to them. They didn't know they was in the demands per se, but we had that relationship to where there was not big tension when I see going on sometimes with the disconnect between the United Black Student Association and student government or other iterations of that. Another example would just be we did have a lot of non-Black allies. We even had a forum to tell people what they could do once they figured out that they wanted to be down. But I would say one of the biggest turning points on campus where I felt the administration kind of changed their outlook was once the anthropology department as a collective all decided to support the Irate 8, and they put out a statement, and then they were featured in AP News. And so at that point, it kind of turned to where I feel the university kind of didn't have as much of a choice but to agree with us, because once anthropology came out as a full department, other faculty members and staff members who were worried about their positions at the university, they felt more comfortable to actually support the IRA 8. And so there was like petitions that went on from alumni, petitions that came out from faculty, where it would only come out after it hit a certain amount of signatures and things like that. But of course, the main people that supported us was the center staff. And then I would also have to shout out Dr. Marshall, because without her, we would not have had any of the connections that we had. Like, we got to meet with the provost, admissions, like every single little place on campus, to not only learn more about what the facts were, but to also express what we wanted, and work with those people. And it all came together because we kind of had some of those meetings before the demands, and then we had meetings after that. And then from there, I think due to her and her leadership, as well as, pressure, the university president like came out with like different working groups and things like that, for us to meet our demands.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you hit on Dr. Marshall Bibb. I was gonna call her name after this. And it's so interesting because Dr. Marshall was not CDO at the time, or vice president at the time when I was an undergrad. She had a whole different role. But I think that it's an unsung role, the work that she did during the early 2000s for Black students, and her relationship with Dr. Mitchell Livingston at the time, and how she helped orchestrate a lot of things for Black students is often not one that people talk about. But I think that's just who she is. She's somebody who's okay with supporting in the background, and we need people like that. We need people who are in the boardrooms and in those places that can speak on our behalf, and it's not necessarily about them always getting their credit. So Luzette Marshall, want to give you your flowers. Torian hit on Frank Bowen, another person that we do not talk about enough. The way that Frank advocated for students, we have not seen leadership like his, I think, since he left. He was just a true student-centered type of person. And as the field professionalized, we lost people like Frank through that transition. But some names that we didn't call today that helped during my transition into leadership as I was the vice president and president of UBSA, Richard Roboltz. Most folks don't know Rich, but Rich works at UC, and Rich is this super quiet person. But Rich is the person who helped us file that paperwork. He's the person who said, do it. Like, he gave me a lot of courage and inspiration. And the current director of the SALD at the time, what her name was, Lucy Croft. And Dr. Croft gave me a lot of support as well. So in addition to the center staff, but I always knew that it was important to have people in other spaces. I don't know if you all have seen that video. I think somebody in the Lambda group had posted about this, having a sponsor. And I've always believed in having sponsors. And that's how you build connections and relationships, because we can't be everywhere and in every room. So as an undergrad, it was really important for me to figure out who could sponsor UBSA's name in rooms that I couldn't be in or couldn't speak on, or even if I couldn't even articulate myself at the time. So I know there's so many people that I don't know that did that, because we were able to have success as an organization because we had allies at the institution who believed that Black students had a voice, deserved a voice, and deserved space to flex that voice as well. So to those I don't know, I mean, just big kudos there. But to those who have already been named, it's amazing what you've helped students accomplish through the years.
Hey, Eric.
Yes, sir.
One of the major communications that we had back then when we were in school was Edna Howe. And Edna Howe, she really played a major role as far as getting a lot of things out in the community. And it got to the point where she had a show called Straight Talk Live, and maybe twice a quarter, because we were on quarters then, twice a quarter, we discussed issues that were going on UC's campus on Straight Talk Live. And I'm not, I don't know if anybody listened to him, but Nathan Ivey is a graduate of UC, and I'm sure if you guys would reach out to him and let him know what your approach is and your stand, I'm pretty sure he would allow you all to be on his show. So that's an outlet right there within itself, because like I said, he is a UC grad. And one of the things, I want to say something else. One of the things that I heard somebody mention, I don't know which one was, is talking about sponsors. When we were in school, Blue and I, we were the sponsored king and queen because we always utilized every organization on campus. We didn't care if it was the Jewish organization. We didn't care if it was the Hebrew organization. We sent a sponsor letter to them requesting funds because technically they are part of University of Cincinnati, and they didn't know who was Jewish compared to who was Hebrew and vice versa. So all it took was for us to, send the email. Well, back then it was a letter. We drafted a letter and we dropped it off in their mailbox. And that's how we were able to fund the Tahimba celebration. That's how we were able to fund the Black Caucus Ball. Those were different allies that we were able to use as a networking tool on campus for our organizations, because we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have the resources that are available now, such as, the internet and, people, paying a membership fee, because all of those things, you only had to pay $1 to get in UVA. So everything else was pretty much, free. So if you, just take heed and write to those organizations, if you're doing something on campus, and tell them how it will benefit the entire campus with a generic mission statement, I'm pretty sure that they would, drop some money for the cause. I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes, but it was nice being on here. I'll see you tomorrow for our meeting. You hear that, Eric?
Good to see you.
So where are you now?
Appreciate it. And
Where are you now, Laurie?
we're doing
Kentucky.
Okay,
I'm in Kentucky now.
I'm gonna put my number and stuff in there. We got to catch up, okay?
We do. Yes,
All right.
sir.
All right. Bye.
Bakari is on is going to be on another program, panel discussion, when we talk about the inception of Tahimba. And so look for that. So we're going in now, it's time. But I wanted to ask if anyone from the audience would have any questions they would like to pose to our panelists. Good to see Brandy joining us, Frambro. That was your maiden name anyway. So anybody from our audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask our panelists, feel free to now.
Good evening.
All right, back to Black Church. Will there be another? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Karan Knights. I'm current 4th year, major in mechanical engineering technology with a minor in Africana studies.
You don't want to show us your face?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch my breath. I just walked into the house. But my question was, for someone who's on his way out as a senior next year, what's the best way to pass down experience and knowledge to either sophomores or freshmen coming in?
Well, I think you're already doing a great job at that. You have mentees and people that are not your mentees that still look up to you and talk to you. So I would just say furthering those relationships and keeping those over time. Like, one of the best things that I loved about UC when I was a student was being connected to the upperclassmen. And then once they became alumni, we still had those same relationships. So Mario was only at UC my first year, but we still keep in touch to this day. And he was still able to like come back, reach back into us and like help us out. Same with like people like Gabby and others who were much older, and even those people that weren't super disconnected in age. I feel like those organizations and things that you get involved in help you like start relationships and also keep them up. So if you're a part of any organizations and some of those younger people are in them or going to be a part of them, like just supporting them, asking them again, like what they need. And then I also think like storytelling is helpful as well. Not in a way to make them feel like they have to do things the same way, but just giving them that perspective so that they know like, hey, this was something that I really enjoyed. This is how it was. If you're doing it, like holler at me if you need help. And I think that opens up the door, because sometimes students don't know that they can still reach out to older folks when really the older folks is like just waiting on somebody to hit them up. So that's what I would say.
Jump in and add to that. I think these types of presentations are really helpful. I think also with the Cultural Center and with the university generally, you could have these snippets of some of the stories that you've heard from many of us from 1968 onward, to talk about our experiences there at the university. You know, we're talking a lot about some of the things that have continually shown themselves repeating, and we've got to stop repeating history. We really do. We really need to make sure that we are celebrating a culture of activism and leadership and cultivating that with students as they come into the university. And hopefully they will take that, as I'm sure most of you have, outside and beyond graduation from the university. We need to also speak with our money. I'm guilty as anybody might also be. We, I'm sure, can donate and designate specifically the Cultural Center to where we want our money to go, whether that's through the UC Foundation or wherever. We need to be about the business of ensuring that the Cultural Center just doesn't go away, and that it broadens, expands, and moves forward to the research that was envisioned in 1968 to move and advance the culture and our students. And so maybe if you all could share with us the best way to provide financial resources. We should never have had a situation where the Cultural Center, or for that fact, any building on the university's campus that had the types of issues with insects, rodents, that kind of thing. That's just absolutely, to me, just unconscionable. And we should never have that. So please tell us how we can donate, what way you prefer. And I think let's be unashamed in saying, if you appreciate your activism, the activism of future students, then show us financially. And so I'm going to make the commitment to do so. So there you have it.
And to piggyback off of Laurie before I leave, also we can, for the gentleman who said he's getting ready to graduate, I know once I left UC, I always tried to commit to participate in certain activities throughout the year instead of trying to come up to everything. So, you know, I was a judge during the Mr. and Mrs. Kwamka. I worked on the Tahimba celebration. When they had spring break tour, I would make snacks and buy snacks for them to take on the tour. So now that I live in Houston, I have extended an invitation to open up and say, hey, you know what, you all can come over here. And, but because, you know, of COVID, of course, we're not doing that now, but there's a lot of things that you can do. Just get with the person in the Culture Center or get with Brandy and just, you know, assist, because it's good for them to see us come back and help. I wish more of us would come back to do it, but now that I'm away, me being visible is not as possible. But when they come down here for the spring break tour, it's always an opportunity for us to throw a reception for them. So just keep us in mind, because it's a lot of alumni here from UC, Black alumni here from UC. So just keep us in mind, because we would love to host an activity for you all. And then I'm gonna tell you also too, we do get a little upset when you all do not contact us and let us know that you're in our city. So I'm just letting you know, please contact us. All right, y'all take a good one. Bye.
And I would say, Karan,
Thanks, Brad.
Go talk to somebody you don't like. Get to know them. Meet them on campus. Somebody who's doing the exact opposite of what you think it should be doing. Go get to know them. And I don't say that out of just to say it. I say that out of my own regret, because when I was an undergrad, there was a couple of dope Black people that I'm actually really cool with now. And if we had linked up when we were in undergrad with the same mindset, we could have been in a whole different place. And I'm talking about Kerry Charles, Arlen Harrell, all these people. When we were undergrad, we did not associate with each other in a leadership capacity just because of our own personal beef. Let that stuff go and keep a couple freshmen around you, and don't push them through that, oh, you got to do this to learn. Get them involved. Step one, wherever you are, have them next to you, let them know, introduce them to your connections on campus, and build those networks then, and keep them going, because those are key components. But my biggest thing is, like, whoever you have an issue with, whoever you have a beef with, if they're doing dope things, recognize that and go try to build something with them, because you're better together than you are apart. And we have to break that cycle of this group is doing this group and that group is doing that. Because what I know now that I didn't know then, we all had the same interests. We were just going about it differently. And Nicole spoke to that earlier. So that's my charge to you. And I think that could be the starting point of how to break that culture, because it needs to be broken.
Dr. Oz, do you still have something, or did you just drop your ideas in the chat?
Yeah, I just dropped it in the chat. The main thing was for Karan's question. Like I said, Abdeen is great. Abdeen knows how to create relationships and has sustained relationships. I've watched him weave in and out of the community, and you two have a very similar flow to yourselves. So I think that you would be great to connect, but also be to the next generation with what you needed and what you wanted. There's an organization that I was in that I always told them, you have to bring a second year student in. That's non-negotiable, because you have to make sure that you have that legacy. You have to be bringing people along. And sometimes we don't want to call that out. I'm glad that you're thinking about who's next, because succession plans are so important for our community, because administrators, we will wait you out. That's the game sometimes for administrators. Not saying that I do that, but having that plan and making sure you're thinking about who's next is so important. So I'm glad you brought that up, Karan, and you all have a few weeks left. So I hope that you figure out what that looks like as you tap this next generation to lead and take on some of the things that you all weren't able to complete during your tenure at UC.
Great question, Karan. Obviously, you're on a great path because you are a former Mr. Kawamka. So yeah, thank you for that question. Any other questions we want to go ahead and end, but if we have any other questions from people who have joined us from the audience, please
Logan
do so.
has a question.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Logan Johnson. I'm a graduate student here at the University of Cincinnati. Oh, can you hear me? Perfect. So my question kind of goes along with the question that was just asked, but just up another level. So I'm going to be here. I'm getting my second master's degree right now. I just got into my PhD program. So I'm going to be at UC for a while. And I'm not from UC. I didn't go to undergrad here. I went to undergrad at Ohio State. Experienced a lot of the same things that some of the students on this undergraduate students say, as far as just the division within the student groups and the fight in that struggle. So I just kind of want to hear what you have to say as far as just for graduate students coming in and wanting to get involved and helping make a difference. Like what are some recommendations?
Well, I'll try to speak to some of that because I was a grad student at UC. I did my doctorate there. And I did also try to be involved with students during some of the issues with Dr. Jackson and the racist flyer. I would say just do it. A lot of grad students are busy and a lot of them claim that they're busy, but they can organize as well. And in organizing, one of the things that some of us Black doctoral students did was to create a Black doctoral student organization at UC, which is probably not going on because I said doctoral students and graduate students in general always claim that they're too busy. But Black doc students can organize and Black graduate students in general can organize. I believe is the Black graduate student organization still there, Logan? But
Yeah.
if it is, get involved with that, and at the same time, with that organizations, connect with undergraduate students who are there organizing and doing activities and plan some things together that you all can do to move organization forward on campus. So that would be one thing I would do is join a graduate student organization, Black graduate student organization, and then work to connect with undergraduate students there because that is very important. We had one program, one of the programs we had as the Black doctoral student organization was to connect with Black undergraduates, and it was a successful program. We had a lot of undergrad students come out mainly because they just wanted to know and see Black doctoral students because they don't get to meet a lot of them because they're hardly ever on campus or ever want to stay on campus when their classes are done. They want to get on campus, do their stuff, and go home. So just seeing Black doctoral students was important for those undergrads that we saw. So things like that you can do to connect and organize on campus as graduate students.
One thing that I'll say is the Black Graduate and Professional Student Association is a thing. So if you're not already involved with that, I would recommend getting involved. And I know that the AACRC is having a collaboration with them next school year. And the idea is to have a peer mentoring program where graduate students mentor undergraduate students who are interested in going to graduate school. So that's not directly tied to activism, but I feel like that would help get you into the community of undergraduate students, get to know them more. But the other idea I had was just like, if you see something going on, just reach out. Like, it's the age of social media. All you have to do is slide in the DMs of like UBSA or whatever, whoever you see, and be like, hey, I see y'all doing this. Like, how can I get involved? How can I help? People don't necessarily like mind what, status you are, as long as you down for the cause.
And I just want to add to that the AACRC is for graduate students as well. Like, so not just undergrad. So make that a space. I've been in like 10 different places on this call, but make that a space for you as well. I wrote my dissertation in the AACRC. Half of my thank yous were undergraduate students that would read papers for me, that would challenge ideas that I had. So make that a space. And I think a missed opportunity that we keep having at UC is we have a very robust Mcnair program, but we've not made that connection to connect our Mcnair program with our Black doc students or just Black students doing research. And I think that's an opportunity for that mentoring component as well, because those students need help. They need research circles. They need people that are doing that work. So I challenge you to think about what that relationship could look like. And we can definitely get you the contact for the leadership in the Mcnair area as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everyone for speaking, but I'm not familiar with the Mcnair program, but I'm a researcher for sure. In criminal justice, my research is policing minority communities, specifically the Black community. So that's definitely something I would be interested in hearing more about.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Ronald Mcnair, he died on the Challenger. He was an aerospace engineer, but he died on the Challenger mission to space. But there is a scholarship essentially in his name that supports undergraduates who want to do research, and it will pay for their GRE. It will pay for graduate school applications. And so it just came to me that that's such a great partnership that we miss out on. So maybe there's some space there. Let's talk after. I'll make sure I get your info.
Okay, perfect. I have to leave. I have another meeting, but I will make sure to email you. I'm so sorry. But I'm definitely interested in learning more. So I'll make sure to email.
Thanks, Logan. Thank you for joining in those questions. So we're actually all going to leave, and I wanted to thank our panelists for joining us. Give them a virtual hand. Thanks all those who are students who joined us, those who are left. And I want to turn over to Brother Abdeen Lewis. Before that, we're going to drop a link in the chat. So if you would fill out a survey, that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much. So Brother Abdeen, of course, a graduate of UC, he's returning back home. And I'll let him talk to you about that a little bit, but he's back home, and we're happy for him. He's going to do a ceremonial charge. There's not a lot of students left on the chat, but this has been recorded, so we're going to send it to students so they can enjoy this. And Brother Abdeen, if you can give a charge to the students who are activists who are coming after those of us who have set the way. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Great to be back at UC. I'll tell you that much. I was in Dayton. They don't have good food in Dayton, so I just had Island Fridays today. So I'm at least glad to get back to some good food. And I want to thank, first of all, everyone who's on the call. I think that I am who I am now because of having great leadership and great examples around me. We all hear that we stand on the shoulders of giants, but I truly believe that. And that's why I stand up strong, chest out, because I believe I can conquer anything with community. And so I do want to thank each and every person that's on this call for your contributions to the struggle, because we know it ain't easy, but it's necessary. And so thank you all. Now for those student leaders, well, actually, let me first jump back real quick. I'm returning back to the University of Cincinnati under the Office for Inclusive Excellence and Engagement as a program coordinator. And so with that, I'll be working in the community and leveraging the resources at UC to provide exposure into STEM. So that's for the most part what my position is. So wanted to share that. Now, jumping back into it, we shared a lot, and I hope that I can provide somewhat of a summary of what's been said and kind of just leaving everybody with a few thoughts. So the first is this: we come from a long line of those who have stood up against injustice, the likes of Ella Baker, Diane Nash, Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton. The list goes on and on when you talk about that freedom fighter era, or excuse me, the civil rights movement era, and those who worked alongside of or within SNCC and the Southern Baptist Leadership Conference. And when you talk about the Black Panthers and so forth, these organizations that young people formed in order to collect their resources and their talents in order to fight against injustice. So we have that era, but then you start to move up, and knowing that these are people who in history, they get highlighted, but there are a lot of people who played their respective parts. And I think that one thing we have to understand is that what's going on the campus is a microcosm of what's going on in the larger society. And so when we make our way up from the 60s and we get into more Laurie and Bakari's time, and knowing that they were fighting the injustices that they saw around them at that particular time, and then moving all the way up into IRA 8. So the point that I'm making is that we come from a rich history of those people who are freedom fighters, but in their own way. But I want to give you a sort of three-part charge, or at least thoughts to walk away with. And the first is that you have to connect to an issue. And I mentioned before that the reason that a lot of students are involved in combating social injustice is because they have been involved and they realize that there are issues. For example, you live in a community that is a food desert, that's an issue. You live in a community where you don't have access to healthcare, that's an issue. You live in a community where there's unsafe drinking water, that's an issue. And those issues then permeate into the campus environment. And so you are living on a campus where in your residence hall, you don't have proper access to the amenities that you need. And I think Laurie spoke to the phones. I think that's hilarious. I might be one of the generations that remember even outside of Kroger, all the play phones that they used to have. But good times. Nevertheless, though, to be void of resources is an issue. So the first thing that I think young activists have to do is connect to an issue, because there are a lot of them around us and we experience them on our daily life, especially for those melanated folk who tend to be marginalized in society. So connect to an issue. And then the next part after that is about being active, because the root word of activism is active, to activate. And to be active, in my opinion, is not always to be in the forefront and being the loudest, being the one who has to organize everything, right? I think there's a place for those kind of leaders. And then there's a place for those, as has been mentioned by Tarian and Bibb and others, that there's a place for those who are in the arts. Art is part of the revolution as well. So those who can do poetry, those who can sing, those who can write. Like I used to bring people into events that who can just make flyers on the spot. And so that's part of the movement. Those who can cook. I tell you what, I'm down for a fish fry. And if you can do a fish fry during the movement, dude, we got you. You're part of the team. And so you just show up and be the person that you are, but have the willingness to contribute to the movement. And so that is one of the things. So connect to an issue and then be active, but be active in your capacity. And then the next thing after that is to be consistent. This fight that we fight for social justice is not an easy fight. And like I said before, it's not easy, but it's necessary. And there are some days where you kind of question whether or not you want to continue to be involved in it, because there's a lot of no's, there's some shut doors, there's some disappointment, but through it all, I think that we're people that persevere. And so you keep moving forward. The consistency piece is the important piece. And so I don't judge the strength of my legacy by what I did, but what was able to continue after I left. Because what difference does it make that you did all of this work, but you don't have a succession plan to continue it? And so those who came after me, they took it up another level. And so shout out to Bibb and those others who formed the IRA 8. So be consistent. And then my last point on this was pass the torch. And so I think that is the most important piece. So everybody should see themselves as a mentor. And Dr. Oz mentioned the role of mentorship, but I think it's lost as a tradition in the Afrocentric, the African-American culture. But we should always have a rich culture of passing the torch, of mentoring the next people or person that will come after us. And so with that, I'm going to leave you with a quote from Diane Nash. Diane Nash said, "There's a source of power in each of us that we don't realize until we take responsibility." Let me repeat that. There is a source of power in each of us that we don't realize until we take responsibility. And so my charge to each and every person who wants to be an activist is to take responsibility, because we all can complain. Boy, can we complain, right? Everybody recognize something and something not going right, but who is going to step up and take responsibility for changing it? I think we far too often want to delegate that out to somebody else, because to be in the forefront and being vulnerable while tackling these issues is not a place that a lot of people want to be in. However, even if you're in a background, like I mentioned before, playing a more background role, be that person, but take responsibility. So that is my charge to all of my young freedom fighters and those even, let let me actually say this too. Bibb mentioned this about the older generations being willing to mentor and to provide their resources. And Laurie even stepped up and said she will commit her funds. But there's some piece that's lost between those who need to be the recipient of those resources and those who have them. So I think that there needs to be better coordination between the two. That's just what I've noticed over time. And so, you know, I think that those who are alumni, we can sit down and strategize and figure out how we can bring together all our resources, right? Be that Ujima, right? Of the principles of Kwanzaa and cooperative economics and or collective working responsibility, right? So let's put together our resources and then make that known to the students that they exist so that they can utilize those. And then for the students, once you realize that you got that issue you connect to and you're active and you're ready to start really getting into this, then my suggestion after that would be, let's connect to the resources and let's make this happen. And so with that being said, thank you all very much. I've enjoyed this panel. My name is Abdeen Lewis. Most people call me Brother Abdeen these days. For all intents and purposes, I'm everybody's brother for that matter. But let's connect if there are those on this call or watching this video would like to connect. You can find me on social media, by the way, brother_Abdeen Lewis. That's brother with an A. All right, y'all.
Thanks for that, Abdeen, for closing us out. Everybody have a great night. Panelists, please drop your contact information in the chat so that our audience could contact you upon need to do so. Have a great night. Thank you all.